As much as Q3 is going to be probably boring for the financial sector, there is some data we need to look at. With one FOMC coming at the end of this month and a big massive break until September, the big data in terms of what we're looking for is rate cuts, but today, most importantly, which you'll see in this video, we have CPI. However, BlackRock and other institutions have been buying very, very aggressively this week on the back of the fact of Germany selling, on the back of the most obvious MtGox. Wonder why? We also have to talk about something huge with Polkadot, which has just been released today, and I'm pretty excited about it. You'll probably know what I mean if you're into Polkadot. But do not forget to like this video. Let's get over 1,000 likes. And yeah, by the way, if you're wondering, I've got comments off, approval only because of scammers. First and foremost, let's talk about this. Let me just move my camera. We are at the point of absolute madness, right? So this has been a really, really positive kind of week so far for the ETF kind of purchases, which is great. But can it last? Can it continue? Obviously today, CPI, so be careful. And this video will be going out pretty soonish. It will be out in the afternoon for most or in the morning for American users. But the reality is here, we've got a lot of sell-offs. There's a big, big catalyst as well. And I'm going to do a dedicated video about it in the future. Not going to mention just yet, so please do subscribe, about what could be happening with purchasing power of BTC coming from somewhere else in crypto, right? Now, this is huge, and I think we need to talk about something else which kind of relates to this as well. So this is relatively huge. When we talk about the CFTC, we're talking about basically the Trade Commission, and the fact that the chairman of this is stating very, very quickly that, well, in a federal court ruling, he has affirmed that Bitcoin and Ethereum are commodities. Now, this is in a federal court. We've often had the SEC talk about security elements. Oh, but Ethereum's security, whatever. This can put it with a full stop on the end, stating that it's not. You can see here, in its decision, the court affirmed that both Bitcoin and Ethereum are commodities under the Commodity Exchange Act. Pretty big. CPI. I used to live streams for this. Now, a lot of it is very, very interesting to see that we are looking at potential good levels. And at the time of me speaking right now, it isn't released. We're going to do the video and I'm going to go back and do the actual real thing. So it'll be a bit weird for you guys, but it'll look the same. This is the expectations. Now, in terms of the previous data, this is what we've kind of got. We had a really good couple of months. And the main thing that happened last time was a really good core print. That core print was a lot better than what we kind of somewhat expected. Let me just press the refresh button just so you can see it's actually real time. This hasn't come out yet, but when I talk about the core, the year on year for the core last time was a real big jolt down, was 2.2%. So that's relatively huge. Now, in terms of the expectations, as I alluded to, there's a lot that are expecting it to come in pretty well. So is the market going to do something? Now, when we do the technicals on Bitcoin, obviously, it's going to be volatile. That's fair enough. The problem is we're going towards a level of resistance. That 60K level is going to be very interesting. Will we reject or not? Let me know in the comments what you think. So this is the CPI data in real terms. You can see this. It is down a significant chunk. 0.3% it is down. And even in the core, down 0.1%. So relatively good. By the way, if you want more content, check out my Patreon. I do a lot more videos on there and a very cool Discord community. But let's get into the obvious. Wolf Research increasingly convinced the Fed will start cutting rates in September. Now, let's just talk about it in obvious terms. The rates are relatively high and have been for a while. It's been paused. This increases interest rates, and this is somewhat of a bit of a defense tactic in terms of getting that inflation rate down. Now, I'm going to talk about this in a second in more detail in terms of why rate cuts matter. But ultimately, for us, we want to see the cuts happen. Now, obviously, mentioned at the start of this video, you've got key data. Key data here, there's going to be a bit of a break into September, not too long away. And it'll be holiday season for a lot of people, certainly in August. Then we get into the nitty-gritty of Q4, which tends to be better for the market. But when we're thinking about it, the first rate cut could happen in September. That could gear everything up. Let me explain. So when we talk about the impact of rate cuts, Basically, if I'm going to give you a word, it's basically quantitative easing in essential terms. It's going to start the printer going on. The Fed lowers interest rates in order to stimulate economic growth. So this is why it's going to get very, very interesting to note that the liquidity could well be coming back to the market over time, over the next coming months, 6 to 12 months, because interest rates are going to go down. Now, this doesn't mean it's going to be whole hunky-dory. There will be volatility in this sense. But when there's too much growth, the Fed will increase the rates. It's a burning thing. It's an element around, well, you've got to do it at a certain point. You've got to stop it at a certain point. It's a balancing act, right? Rates increase are used to slow inflation, return growth to more sustainable rates. Rates cannot get too high because more expensive finances could lead to economic, basically, issues, and we don't want the likes of deflation. So in essential term, it obviously affects finances, mortgages, credit cards, etc. And a lot of people right now, right, and this is a stat that I've just kind of plucked off the top of my head in terms of a tweet or not too long ago, was a lot of consumers in America are struggling with their credit cards. I think it's 8% of people are struggling right now and missing payments. Yeah. So stuff like this, it's huge. It has a knock-on effect. And the final thing we need to talk about is obviously this. Now, I talked about it just then. Polkadot. It's decoded time. Boom. Massive, massive event. But they're already releasing a new app called Polkadot Play. Basically, dot staking, 1+ million stores in 33 countries with up to 20% cashback. Basically, it allows you to use your dot tokens everywhere. And this is kind of like, when we look at like the UI, secure and simple. Anyone can create a wallet they can remember. You don't need seed phrases, which is pretty important too. You can onboard your mother, which is great fun. So when we start seeing all these staking more than just wallet, you can see how it looks. This is a huge thing. And I went on a massive rant in my Patreon. And I went like, with all this kind of, key opinion leader stuff, and that's fair enough, right? You got to promote a product, but it depends on how you do it. And I've often said, and I did a massive rant about it, saying, right, look at the Inter Miami football sponsorship, right? And I was like, right, this is a great idea. And I went on a rant about it, saying, if you're going to sponsor something, you need it more than just a name. No one's going to reference, Polkadot, if you're in America or if you're in Canada, wherever in the world, UK, by just looking at it, thinking, all right. People just think it's a kind of a pattern. Now, when you kind of put it with a tangible element in terms of being able to say go to an Inter Miami game because it's like potential shirt sponsor, as an example, right? I know this hasn't happened, but if you're a football fan and you've went to the games and you're thinking, right, if you've bought, said, however many tickets, right, 5 tickets in a row, and you get some Polkadot back onto your tickets as a code, go into the club store and buy a football shirt, that would be a really good thing to do, an incentivized element that you get Polkadot back. That was kind of the whole point of my argument. It's the same argument that I get with gaming. Everyone's talking about, gaming's going to make crypto amazing. Well, reality is it's not. It's going to be you need an existing element of what we've used to, put it in a game, and then maybe people get rewarded in tokens, right? Don't worry about making a new token. Use bloody Ethereum. Use something like we use. This is big, in my opinion. This is really, really handy. There's a lot of things happening on Polkadot. And I know I get a lot of shit in my comments saying everything's dead, but they are really morphing into something different. And you've seen all the handshakes with Gavin Wood, Vitalik Buterin, and Joseph Lubin and stuff like that. That's massive. The band are back together, basically. That's going to be huge. So yeah, could be fun. So before I go into the technical analysis, I want to draw my attention towards this. If you use the code SummerCrash on any learning crypto products, whether it's premium, whether it's Traders Lounge, it's one transaction only, i.e. you can save 50% on an annual membership or 50% on your first monthly membership, right? There's also a free Discord. If you click on the link, it actually goes to the Discord straight away. So if you want to get a free membership chat, jump in. But yeah, it's all there. Check it out. Anyways, markets. Let's have a butchers. Let's have a gander. It's looking relatively good right now, but what I'm going to say is kind of obvious here. We have a CPI print very, very soon. And the one element that I'm looking at right now is this level of resistance. It's kind of obvious. The reality is, though, we're probably going to go into it and go, hiya, you're right. And the element is, do we reject or do we flip it? And by flipping, do we go above that and above the EMA, above that Fibonacci level, whatever you want to know it as, and then rest around here? And this is just a deviation, maybe. Or is it going to go up into it? It's going to be a level of demand from bears to sell into, and then we're going to continue going lower and do a deeper correction. So far, the drawdown on this cycle isn't too bad. A lot of people are panicking, but it's not really that much to kind of worry about, in my opinion anyways. But that's Bitcoin. We have got a divergence. We are going to bounce. It's obviously in a downtrend, but are we going to flip this? Maybe. But you need to be wary that, well, maybe we might not. If we don't flip it, we're probably going to go down here. Sorry. But it all goes back to that Q3 element of absolute shite, basically, and nothing's going to happen. So we have to be mindful of that. What is also interesting is what could be happening today in the next 15 minutes as I talk, basically with the CPI print. This will start reacting. As I say, I'm going to go back in terms of actual life, plonk it in the video, but this will not reflect it because I'm not going to go back onto this. This will create volatility not too long, in and around it. What's interesting about this is if you go to the higher time frames, it looks like it's showing signs of failure, in my opinion. We've created an obvious lower high here. Are we going to continue going, into this region and then continue going low and go into this point? The problem we have is the dollar can be very, very fluctuating, and the strength of the dollar is going to be huge, obviously, with what's happening in Asia, what's happening with crypto, gold, whatever. Now, with a good print on CPI, it could strengthen the dollar. However, that being said, it might not. It depends on what's happening around the world. And obviously, we need this to go down for crypto to do well. It may not be as simple as that, though. Another thing we have to look at is the more obvious element of this. It's like, oh my God, what's happening here? Now, this is obviously the world of the S&P 500. I mean, I'm going to remove all my cack here, but this is at levels of all-time high. This is just continuously just going to the moon. It's like, okay, cool. Let's keep going. Divergence all over the place. Nope, not even bothered. Chinned it right off. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at this overall kind of move, and look at where it is. It's way beyond those levels. It's rejected off the top point, off it goes. Are we going to go higher? Probably. This is looking interesting. The likes of Nvidia doing pretty well still. It's looking really, really positive. Now, I mentioned it in one of my previous videos not so long ago that Ethereum's looking by far one of the worst altcoins in terms of the top elements, in terms of the correction. This has been a bit of a brutal one. However, it has found levels of support. With this, it could be very interesting to see where it goes. Is it going to go towards these levels? Let me have a look at this region. Or is it going to continue going higher towards maybe this region here? Maybe. This is kind of probably marrying up with an obvious kind of Fibonacci sequence, by the way. Just saying. There we go. Perfectly. Yeah. So this is probably the more interesting one. Let's ignore that one for now. So be mindful of this 3,000, 2,000, whatever, I can't even speak, 3,300 level-ish. Around that point, that could be an interesting point, and we could go lower from that point. Obviously, an ETF is kind of up in the air in terms of when the release is going to happen, but I would really think it's going to go down to here. Sorry, guys, if you're bullish on Ethereum, this isn't good structure. It's got to pull back into a level, probably going to continue going lower, in my opinion. Yeah. And the final thing to talk about is similar sort of structure in terms of the obvious. This is a downtrend. Daily time frame looks a bit better, but reality is this is probably going to pull back, in towards this region, and we'll see where it goes from here. This is a big level, by the way. This is a monster of a level, which has been a very good, obvious level of support in the past. It's obviously had a run from that point. It's obviously bounced off it a few times, and we continuously went below it and then found it as a level of resistance. Yeah, you get the idea. So be mindful of this one. Obviously, Polkadot news is really, really good, and all the other stuff with the proposals coming out is relatively strong. But let's be honest here. If you're going to go long on this, you want to wait for it to flip this and then continue going higher. If not, it's a potential short. Just saying. So there we go. A lot of waffle, a lot of bollocks, I know, but hey, CPI print, not bad, eh? Anyways, enjoy. There's a video that is popping up. You should probably check that out, in all fairness. Why there's a potential no alt season, unless something crazy happens.